Welcome to the Spotlight Podcast. We are filming from our new studio in Nottingham, UK. Today I have a special guest. These are my classmates, Aditya Deepak from
right.
India.
You got it right then.
And Mohamed Talha from Pakistan.
Yes, absolutely.
Fellas, thank you so much for stopping by to talk with me a little bit.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure.
Can you tell me a little bit about your early education, especially with you, Aditya?
Yeah, so like you know that I've come here to do my master's in international relations, but my early education has not been anything remotely related to the social sciences. I actually come from a engineering background.
Tell me about India. You have right at the beginning, medical, no medical, and engineering.
Oh, yeah. So we have this unique binary within India where the only educational and occupational fields that are seen as valid in the eyes of our parents are either you become an engineer or you become a doctor.
So tell me the story with your mother.
Mm-hmm. So I'll actually start with my dad. So my dad has a similar background as me, in the sense that he never wanted to be an engineer himself, and he fell into it because my grandfather had an engineering setup, and my dad kind of fell into it because my grandfather fell ill, and he felt that I have a responsibility towards my family to fulfill these roles that a man has to fulfill. So he kind of fell into it. He wanted to be a poet, my dad. Yeah, and he writes beautifully, my dad. Yeah, he really loves to write poetry. He writes poetry in English, but he loves poetry. And so he fell into it, and then a couple of years later, he was 21 when it happened, when my grandfather fell ill and my dad took over his enterprise, and he got married at 26. I was born when he was 30. And by then he was so into the life that he had been living for the last decade by the time I was born. He kind of also forgot that as a young man, he didn't want to be an engineer. So when I was, in India, up to the time, so we have a segregation of our education up to when we are 15 years old, 15 or 16. And then we get to choose how do we want to pursue a specific field at that particular point. The 10th grade is how we call it. And after the 10th grade, based on your marks, based on your interests, you get to choose subjects which will push you into either you become an engineer, you become a doctor, you become a lawyer. But the basic binary is you either become an engineer or you become a doctor. Everything else is secondary.
So at a certain point, your mom came to you and she says...
This happened after that. So I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but I need to create the story around it. So I didn't have every single friend of mine from school, we all ended up becoming engineers. We chose subjects that eventually made us engineers. And I remember distinctly in my second year, was it, of my engineering. So I'm quite into it by then, like halfway through it. And this is when I realized, I actually don't like this. This isn't my interest. This doesn't excite me. This doesn't intellectually stimulate me. I've always wanted to be in the social science. I actually wanted to be a historian. So I told my mom that. And my mom's telling me, that's beautiful. You just get your degree, get your engineering degree, make sure you get that professional degree, and then you can do whatever you want.
You can do what the hell you want with your life.
Live with my life. And so I have actually been quite a strong proponent within my own family. So I am the last engineer that my family has produced, because I have made sure my younger cousins were quite, not if they actually did want to be engineers, all for it, but they had the similar pressures that I had when I was their age. Because I was an example for them, like, I was the good cousin and all of that. So they were quite, my opinion was valued even with their parents. And I told them that, don't push your kids into these binaries. So my sister is just a year younger than I am. She didn't have to. She actually did want to go into the medical field, but it didn't pan out. So that's fine. But my younger cousins, all of them, have doing exceptionally well in what they are doing now, and I feel proud of the fact that I was able to influence their parents a little bit to make sure they weren't pushed into the same binaries that I was in. So, yeah.
Basically, now you're in the UK doing international relations at the Nottingham Trent University, and you're also doing machine learning back home.
I have all my this actually came from my sister's ex-husband. He's a data scientist himself, and this always interested me, the concept of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and the idea of creating a new form of life digitally, because that is what it's eventually going to become.
Yeah. And so, this is the main subject of UK study in global governance. We will talk about this. Let us switch back to our friend Mohamed. How are you?
I'm fine.
Mohamed, can you tell me a little bit about your education prior to coming to the UK? I'm very interested because you are actually an assistant professor of IR.
No, not assistant professor, but visiting lecturer.
Okay. I do apologize. Can you give me a little insight into how you end up in that position, and we will take it from there?
Well, as Aditya have pointed out, this is not just with India, it is actually with Pakistan as well. The prominent fields that for the kids in our times were this engineering and medical. A kid is born, he's either a doctor or engineer.
There you go.
There is no other third option. So I have done till matric, I've done pre-medical, which is actually the same for almost everybody, except there are some other art subjects as well. But anyhow, I even chose I was never interested in medical sciences. I have failed. There is this exam taken right before board. We call it detention and pre-boards. And I failed biology subject twice.
Really?
In detention and pre-board. And not that I was a weak student. I was remarkable. I was, in my teacher's point of view, I was a very hard-working student. But anyhow, biology was never my subject. And but I did in secondary school, I did in medical field, and then even in the higher secondary school, I chose medical field just because of the peer pressure. No, it was never our choices. It was,
similar experience.
Yeah, but what actually led to my independent choices was that right after my FSC, higher secondary school, I got sick. There was a prolonged sickness. So people stopped taking interest in my priorities, what I'm studying. And that was the time I chose what I need to study. And it was then IR, International Relations. Then when I took a start, it was a very slow and steady start in social sciences. But eventually I received even a gold medal for my academic distinction from the University of Peshawar. And right after getting my gold medal, they even offered me a class to teach. Now, see, interestingly, I have received a gold medal by doing bachelor's. And right after receiving gold medal, I am told to teach the bachelor students.
Oh, interesting. So
in the class, there would be even elders in my first class, elder than me as well. So it was a very exciting experience, one must say that.
They're even emailing you and texting you right now.
Yeah. So it actually took a start like that. Then after some time, I felt like this was the natural thing. This teaching came naturally because I was doing good. The reviews and the students' satisfaction regarding me was actually above average. It was actually pretty good than even other permanent teachers. So they even kept going on with me for the classes to teach. And so I was actually not limited to the class with my students. My students would actually contact with me outside the class and they would seek guidance because, see, Peshawar is actually the capital of KP province, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And Khyber Pakhtunkhwa has so many tribal areas as well, which weren't part of the KP at that time. But eventually in I'm not right with the year, in which Fatah was merged with the KP province. But there were so many tribal students, they were having so many difficulties. And I always tried to counsel them outside the class. And even every student of mine would try to keep contact with me through social media platform.
There you go.
Yeah, but
That's a sign of a good teacher.
No. But I never would. Actually, I made them to keep contact with me through email.
No, I meant like in the sense that they want to keep in touch with you.
Yeah.
That's a sign of a good teacher.
Well, you can call it good, but because of that, I never had even a social life. Because if they take all of your time.
And Mohamed, tell me, you are coming from academic family. Your brother is actually professor of finance. One of the most famous universities in your part.
Yeah, my eldest brother, my eldest brother is assistant professor at Institute of Management Sciences, which is actually one of the best universities in KP and even in Pakistan. It has its own academic excellence. And my uncle is a doctor. My other uncle is a lawyer, advocate of High Court, and my even we call it Bobby, is a gynecologist. So we have so many doctors. My other cousins are doctors as well. So our family in our region, which is actually a village, but it's now you can't call it a village anymore because of the development that has occurred. So we would call it a semi-village from where I belong. Actually, our family was the only educated family, but right now the younger generation has been quite educated. Even I have seen in the UK that so many students from there as well are studying from here. So that's a very great sign.
It's amazing. You referred to them as a tribe, which I found quite amazing. Yeah. How big is the tribe?
The tribes, it's very big tribes we have got. We have in Pathans, we have so many tribes. From the tribes I belong from Khalil tribe. Khalil, yeah. It's a very big tribe.
Tell me, Talha.
Yeah, it's a very big tribe. Yeah. So it's a very... if we look back to our history, it's quite fascinating the way we have lived for years and now where we are right now.
It would never have our ex-colonizers.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Having this conversation.
Aditya, funny thing is, believe me, I was never, ever interested in coming abroad. Mm-hmm. My own mamu is a national of United States of America. But I was never into this.
As a matter of fact, this is his first time traveling abroad for an extensive period of time.
No, even I haven't lived outside my home. Not even in
How amazing is this? That's why I feel that his experience in the UK
is going to be so unique.
Exactly. Aditya, tell me, at the point where you really finished the engineering classes and then really coming back to your real passion, which is IR.
No, that came a little later. I was kind of meandering through life for a bit over there. Mm-hmm. That's where I started training myself in machine learning, and like I told you about my ex-brother-in-law, who was he didn't kind of like inspire me, but seeing what he did or what he was doing was interesting to me. So I did so I didn't want to go through like a professional course because what I realized that is because this comes back to why I am interested in the social sciences. It's about understanding human beings. Okay, it's about the human perspective. So why I wanted to study these things was about what we spoke about in class about job loss. How these technologies are going to be affecting our species going forward. So, but what I found in my classes was, and I can't blame them for thinking like that. It was because even though we have this, grand idea of India right now being a power to be in the world, India still fundamentally still remains a poor country. A majority of the population of India who consider themselves to be middle class are actually not middle class. They are working class. The middle class is effectively the wealth divide in India is huge now, and it's. I think COVID has really exploded that. But none of this comes out because I think there is an agenda even in the West to portray India a certain way, which is to counter the punch that China offers to the Western establishment, and they see India as a kind of alternative to that. So even in the Western media, you won't see a lot about human rights abuses that are happening in India, xenophobic cultural shifts that are happening in India that have happened in the last couple of decades. It's not visible. But so what I saw when I was going back to the point I was making was about when I was studying was that the people who were studying these technologies that are fundamentally going to shift human reality going forward, our society forward, they were not doing it from an academic or a perspective that how does it affect our species. They were doing it from a perspective, how do I leverage this into a higher paycheck? I'm not going to blame them for that. These people have really pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and gotten themselves to the point that they can get themselves educated in these things. I felt that I come from a very privileged family. My father has been a rich man. I have never had to face any kind of economic or financial hardships in my life. So I felt that if I also fall into the same trap, not the same trap, but the same patterns as these people who genuinely do require that, because they are the first people in their generations to actually get to a point where they can get a master's degree. I felt that it would be a disservice to our society. So I said that I should probably maybe use my privilege in a way that we can talk about, we can bring about, it's about what we were talking about before this started, these conversations that civilizational shifts, civilizations are like glaciers. It moves forward slowly. It takes generations. It's a multi-generational effort. I thought that maybe I can do a little small part in moving the conversation forward so that we can ensure that our society survives whatever trials and tribulations that come forward. So I thought that's how I eventually fell into IR and into the social sciences. I mean, it was always been my interest, and that's how I came into IR.
Mohamed, tell me about the security part of your studies.
I would actually first ask Aditya one thing. Have you noticed? See, when I took this shift, I realized one thing in social sciences. The beauty of social sciences is that there is not a concept of black and white in it, right or wrong.
Exactly.
In the medical field, it was all about right or wrong.
Same thing that I experienced when I was doing the training for, which is again goes back to the question we were talking about, artificial intelligence and systemic biases coming in. Everything is viewed as black and white, 1 and 0. It's either good or bad. There is no perspective of how the good gets shifted across the spectrum, bad gets shifted across the spectrum. I said, that's not how humans live.
Those are these gray balls that you mentioned.
I was exactly, I mean, kind of, but it's because a data scientist or an artificial intelligence person, a scientist, without a training in philosophy, would not have been able to come up with the concept of the gray balls. It took a philosopher to come up with that. Like Bostrom is the philosopher who I mentioned, who came up with that concept, the vulnerable Earth hypothesis. He came up with it. Because when you talk to these, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No.
It's kind of like answering your question.
This is exactly the formal podcast, so just keep on.
Keep on.
If you look at the kind of, like you said, like the conversation is kind of shifting. Like Max Tegmark is a huge proponent of, we need to halt AI research right now.
Yeah.
Sam
Life 3.0.
Life 3.0, the book that he's written. But even now, so he's also been on another podcast, the Lex Friedman podcast, where he is actually the title of the podcast is The Case for Halting Research into AI. Max Tegmark is a skeptic. Elon Musk is a skeptic. But you have the other behemoths in...
By the way, Elon Musk said that when asked if he fears death, he said it will come as a relief. So could you just imagine what this guy has in his head to come up with this kind of statement? Sorry, because I interrupted you there. Mohamed, give me a little bit of your insight about security studies. You shift from IR to security, and it's a quite a shift. And
I won't say quite a shift. It's a very interesting shift.
Exactly.
Yeah, focus. Actually, the focus. Well, you know, being a student or being involved in this international relations field, the security study, let me clear that for you guys, that security study is a part of international relations. And in international relations, everything you talk about is linked somewhere to the security. You see politics happening everywhere. It's all about security, securing themselves. Either it's about the security of individuals, either it's security of states, or the security of a system, or the security of one ethnicity or the other ethnicity regarding the different issues going on, especially in case of developing countries and underdeveloped countries. So I have always been fascinated with the concept of security. Back in Pakistan, we saw all the time when we would read literature, or I won't call it literature, but media and other channels we would watch and read news, it would be somewhat the securities, it would be linked to security in one way or another. There would be questions that about security, like in a sense that we are under threat.
Yeah, this is how I feel as well.
We are
really?
in my region. You know, since 1990s, back in Balkans, you know, you are always under some kind of threat.
A siege that's going to be happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we were told, oftentimes, even in media, right now, they would be saying that we are under threat either from this unemployment, poverty, illiteracy, this, that. So, and in international relations, we studied about this security, but briefly in a sense that the concept of security has kept on evolving in the fields of international relations. Initially, it was all about states.
The fundamentalist realist point.
Yeah, realism. But then there comes liberals that they said that it's about individuals as well. Then there came environmentalists. They say no. It's not just about individuals and states. It's about environment as well, because environment is the biggest threat human race has ever been faced with.
Yeah, the anthropogenic climate change. You know, it's man-made.
For them, yeah, it is man-made. Then there are some other aspects of the security as well besides environment as well. So I was always intrigued by these ideas, the concept changing phenomena of security. So this led me to take this security studies, and the whole focus should be on security studies. For that reason, I have joined the security studies.
Do you feel that the advent in AI would be a new gray zone that we are talking about?
We are already there.
Yeah, you know, it's artificial intelligence is what actually? How do you define artificial intelligence?
How do you define intelligence?
Yeah.
What is the source of
Sounds a philosophical question.
Because it is fun. This is the problem, because the research into AI is fundamentally being directed up till now. It's just in the last 1 or 2 years that there's a shift happened, but till now the research into artificial intelligence has been directed and pushed forward by people who have absolutely no idea what the source of our own philosophy. Why do we think? What is the source of our consciousness? These hard questions. What is qualia? Like, you know, the subjective experience, the objective experience, the difference. They don't care about those things. And this is another thing that I experienced when I was studying these things, is that there isn't an interest in understanding the source of, because if we are going to create this kind of, I mean, I wouldn't even like it's like how you said in class yesterday, you know, like the way it is being trained right now, it is being fed in with fed in with human interactions on the internet, and that is how these models are being trained right now. Eventually, there'll come a point where how these systems train themselves would be based on their own subjective experiences that came as a consequence of how they were trained. Like how we learn as children. When we are small children, we have our parents telling us, "Oh, don't touch that. That's hot," right? But we still have that feeling that so we do not have any conception of pain at that point of time. We don't have conception of what is hot. How do we get those? Is through our subjective experience of touching the thing, experiencing pain. And then we train. So we develop thoughts of how we experience, because how we each individually experience pain is different, right?
Yeah.
So my gradation of accepting how hot a particular thing is could be different from yours. I would have a lower tolerance for heat than you do.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have seen this thing, especially here in UK, that we would be freezing with cold, and there are people who don't feel cold.
Exactly.
You'd be like,
they're subjective because they've always lived with the cold.
No. Then I saw a baby, a very small baby, and he was not fully covered in a very extreme cold night. And I was like, I imagined myself as a baby, and my mother would be covering with me all sorts of hot stuff and say, oh, it's cold, because she is feeling cold. So our parents and peers have put certain ideas into our head. Even because of that, I sometimes feel like that is why we might feel cold too much than these people, because they don't even care if it's a cold or freezing out there. Haven't you seen that?
You're talking about the cultural impact of of your subjective experience. That's actually a good point.
So I have actually compared myself as a child of my own mother and them, and I have seen that there might be, because when we were growing up, we were told quite often these ghost stories, and we believed in ghosts. Why? Because we were told so. Now when we are growing up, we say there is no such thing as ghost.
And the same, the ghost stories that we were talking about, my mom used to tell us when we were kids. I was about 4. My sister was 3, it's because we have a year gap, obviously. And so I was a good child. And, my mom tells me, go to sleep, eat, study. I used to listen to her, no questions asked. My sister wasn't the same. She had a strong personality even at that age. So my mom had to manufacture stories to threaten her, to cajole her, to manipulate her into doing things. And, that's why I love her. She's one of the strongest people I know, my sister. So she used to point towards a window, my mom. And this particular night, I took inspiration from my younger sister, and I said, okay, I'm also not going to sleep. My mom said, look out the window. You see that creeping hand that's coming from out there? So my mom manufactured the conception of a thing called Jablah, which is a word that doesn't exist in any of our languages.
Yes.
It doesn't
Jablah.
Jablah, yeah. That doesn't exist in Hindi. She doesn't speak Marathi. She doesn't speak Marathi. That definitely doesn't exist in English. My mom speaks Swahili. It doesn't exist in Swahili. It's not there in Malayalam. No, it's a word she just manufactured out of the blue, because the conception of a ghost, the idea of some supernatural entity, was so ingrained in South Asian culture that she could make up anything and we would believe her. So she created this fictional creature called Jablah, which is this creature with long hands, long fingers that will come and take poorly behaved children with them into the oblivion if you don't listen to your mothers. So
I will go back to the huge creature and maybe the potential threat from outside, but I would now keep you guys in your region. Given the international relations and security, how do you perceive a current situation between the bilateral relations between India and Pakistan, and generally the situation, the way you perceive it in the region? And what do you feel could be the greatest challenges today?
So while both our countries were formed around the same time, we have had two very distinct destinies, and from 1947 to 2023. Not just in how we are within ourselves, but even how the world views us. And I would go back to our leaderships at that point of time. We had leaders who decided that we were going to create a new form of country which would be a unique experiment in the history of the world, and the will of those men and women, to create this unique identity of what it meant to be an Indian, what it meant to be a citizen of India, which is Bharat. which is the two names for our country, which is enshrined within our constitution. There's another debate about that going on now within India, but because at that point of time there wasn't a distinct idea of what India was supposed to be. And I'm going to be talking about India because I don't want to be talking about Pakistan. But because we had at that point of time just come out of the shackles of colonial rule and pre-colonial rule, the Mughal Empire. So at that point of time, India had just come out of being essentially a slave nation for close to 600 years, and there was the Indians at that point of time had no conception of how to create their own identity, what it meant to be an Indian back then. And there was a strong voice at that point of time when the separation happened and we had the Radcliffe Line created and India got divided into Pakistan and Pakistan, India, and then what is Bangladesh today was East Pakistan at that point of time. And we were also under the threat from religious fundamentalists in our country to create India in a form of a Hindu supremacist state at that point of time. And because these people took inspiration from the fascist party at that point, from in Europe. Fascism was just been defeated, but there was quite a bit of inspiration that we need to recreate a kind of similar identity to ensure that we do not become slaves again to any other foreign race. That would have put India onto a path which we would not be where we are today if that wasn't the case. We would have become a fundamentalist state. We would have been subjugating minority faiths, which would have become an institutionalized policy, whereas the constitution that was created as a consequence of our independence by the men and women who created it, they ensured that the responsibility of the state would be to take care of the rights of the minority, because the fundamental conception is that the majority would always dominate the minority. I'm talking about faith over here, religion. It didn't mean that India had a free ride at that point of time, and because we decided to go non-aligned during the Cold War, we did not have access to Western money at that point of time, because we were looted. I mean, there's an Indian member of parliament named Shashi Tharoor who said that if the British Empire were to pay us reparations for the amount of wealth it looted during the course of its colonial rule in India, it would be to the tune of $44 trillion. And so you're talking about India was one of the richest countries in the world when the British came in, and when they left, we were one of the poorest countries in the world. And we still chose to take the hard path out. We could have easily entered into the capitalist framework that was popular after the Second World War and reap the benefits off of it, but we didn't. And I feel like, so I talked to my father at that point of time. My mom never grew up in India. My grandfather was in the British Foreign Services and he was posted in Tanzania. She was born there. She only came back to India in 1982. My dad was born in India. She was 22 at that point. She first came to India when she was 22. So she didn't know what it meant to be growing up in a poor India. And she grew up rich. Whereas my dad grew up poor in India. And he tells me about the kind of deprivation that we witnessed at that point of time was unparalleled, because while we were still free from colonial rule, we were not free from the effects of the colonial rule.
Of course, but let me get back to the initial question. Mm-hmm. How do you perceive a current relation with Pakistan? And what could be the major challenges at the moment that you feel?
Personally, see, Pakistan is going through a massive financial crisis right now.
Yes,
it is quite frankly, in my opinion, terrifying how poorly Pakistan is doing economically, and not from the perspective of a security threat. We do share we were part of one country at one point. We probably share some kind of ancestry. It's like when your brother is hurting, you hurt. This is my personal opinion. And I don't want to sound condescending, but in terms of where we are in the world today, India is the big brother to Pakistan, economically. And I won't talk about the military or anything like that, but primarily economically, socially at this particular point of time. I feel that we need to take a bigger responsibility in ensuring that the Pakistani economy, the Pakistani people feel wanted and be wanted in India. And I feel that is something that's not happening, because in India is also going through a kind of social upheaval right now with our current political climate, where it's easy to score some brownie points if you bash Pakistan. And which I feel is 3 steps back.
Of course.
Yeah. So we need a kind of like a civilizational shift in our opinions of. We have to stop thinking of ourselves as enemies. And honestly, at this point of time, I don't know how we do it. I mean, this experience that we are having right now, it could only happen if we were sitting outside of India or Pakistan.
Exactly. Yeah. I totally agree with him. In addition, I would say that in the class, Aditya and one of our other classmate, Pooja, were saying something like history, this change happening historically. And I told, I shared something like that history, the very good thing people can do is to forget history. But people can't.
Why you say that?
History. Now, it's all about history. In history, the seeds of mistrust and these things were sown into the bloods of these Pakistan and Indians. And that, we couldn't get rid of it. Because, if our partition would have been peaceful, we won't have that many problems. I would say we would have...
Do you think the partition should have happened?
Well, now coming back to even this part, that the partition, our leaders, it was quite fortunate on India's part that their leaders survived for so many years, for so many years after the partition that happened.
Yeah, that's another problem.
In our case, our leaders actually, you should know this thing that during partition, all the Pakistanis had different cultures. They weren't speaking same language. The only thing, the uniting factor was religion. That was being made a basis for our partition. Even there were Muslims that were against the creation of Pakistan. There were Muslims, quite prominent ones. But anyhow, they were able to get Pakistan, and they wanted to make Pakistan a great nation, our founding fathers. But they couldn't survive. Even in our case, the very great leader of our nation, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, died right after 1 year.
That is the great tragedy of Pakistan.
Yes.
Our leader survived for another 20 years post-independence. Jinnah passed away.
So they gave their leader, the Indian leaders gave their nation a very great, strong foothold. We lacked that. Even if you look into the history of elections, we couldn't even have a straight direct elections until 1970s. Pakistan came into being in 1947, and we weren't able to make constitution for so many long. There was in 1950s we made one constitution that we couldn't agree on. Then dictator Ayub Khan came. He gave us the second constitution. We couldn't, it couldn't sustain itself because it was given a military dictator. And then there came finally the current one was given by after the disengagement or dismemberment of East Pakistan from West Pakistan. Only then
71.
In 1971. So these things, leadership, there was a vacuum of leadership. Then there was a bitter history with India, especially during partition. And then there was I would say, not at any single point Pakistan got a very stable leadership. One can argue that during military's rule, Pakistan saw some political stability just because one person is ruling like for a decade.
Yeah.
So of course there would be a political stability because he won't allow the opposition.
How is Musharraf viewed now?
Musharraf, well, you know, Musharraf had made so many terrible mistakes. I won't say mistakes, but judgy decisions. You see, even a very pious dictator has its own faults. A very pious dictator. So that was even that would apply even in the Musharraf case. So these were some reasons that we couldn't establish good relations with India. It was quite unfortunate. If we could compare this with France and Germany, they fought so many during World War I. You know, during World War I, Germany fought on this French and Belgium soils. They made huge destructions. After the end of First World War, it was actually George Clemenceau. Yeah. He was French. He wanted to punish the Germans so much so that just dismember them. And
he was quite vocal in that making the Treaty of Versailles so tough on the Germans that no militarization, no industrialization, because the revenge for what the Germans did.
He was so vengeful. And
yeah.
The British couldn't allow that because British said that Germany should be there just to counter other European powers. So some balance should
and the balance of powers in Europe.
What I'm trying to
It's a good parallel.
That they were really, really great enemies. They had remained great enemies, but they are friends. They are in the European Union.
No. Exactly.
But in Pakistan, in India case, we couldn't sort out these things. And I would blame only one thing, that our deep states, there are, especially in Pakistani case, it's quite evident, active, and even it is present in Indian case,
sure.
but it is passive there. They don't show themselves quite evidently, just like in the case of Pakistan. In Pakistan, they're like, okay.
It's very overt.
Yeah.
There was one memorable moment when he said that some of the classes, when we are done with our burdens, we will show our resilience and our adaptability. And I think we have an edge even over India, right? Can you explain me this point? What did you mean?
This is about the uniformity of Pakistani culture, right?
Well, you know,
did I get you correctly? I mean, what type of burdens you need to deal with prior to the prosperity of any kind? This is as I discussed earlier, that the vacuum of there has never been a political maturity in Pakistan case. When there isn't any political poor leadership,
political maturity, you don't know what's wrong with you, what you need to do. You just can't blame it. You know. When I was growing up, Pakistan, during my early teenage, Pakistan was an ally of United States of America. During Cold War, Pakistan has remained quite an ally of United States.
This was my second question.
Yeah, but we can discuss that.
But please.
But right now, what I want to tell you that Pakistan joined US in our actually fight against terrorism, and as a result of it, there was some militancy occurring. Not some, but actually, the KP region was hit hard as a result of it. From 2008 till 2013, so many bomb blasts. I've narrowly survived even some of them because 2 hours earlier, I visited a place, and when I reached home, there was this news that a bomb blast occurred there. So it was happening in every public place, this terrorism. And we would be told that actually India is responsible for this through this...
the deep state.
Taliban, Pakistan. Then being a student...
Is that the conversation that the RAW was responsible for creating Tehrik-e-Taliban?
RAW. Always. anything bad happening...
It's RAW.
No. Somewhere it has to be linked to India. But then I started watching Indian television, and anything that would happen there, Pakistan would be responsible. So I wasn't... we didn't have a television in our home, thanks to my father. So I personally didn't take the media's point of view quite much, because I would have to search and watch through internet everything. So I would search my own things and my own opinion would be developed. So in that case, I would be saying like, okay, everything bad is happening in India, Pakistan is doing, ISI is doing, and everything bad is happening in Pakistan is Ra doing. Where are the security forces? Where are the security analysts who are standing at the borders? When there is peace, everyone take what that I have. Actually, this peace is being made possible because of me, because of our armed forces, because of our security analysts, because of ISI. But when all of a sudden there is some mishap happens, okay, those bad guys did it. So this same thing we discussed so much. I used to be on Facebook on social media programs, and I would discuss it. And there were some very mature Indians, and at that time I was quite in my early teenage, and they were quite elder and they had quite experience. When they would write something, I would try to make sense of it. So eventually that sense developed, and that actually led me to even reading books, and different articles. So these things, this mistrust, this composite dialogue, this everything is, we couldn't materialize. We couldn't actually deal with the real things on ground levels. And thanks to our deep states, that they didn't allow. Even, two Raw chief and ISI chief can write books together. Mm-hmm. In that books, they are claiming that they had secret relationships. Mm-hmm. But we as a civilians can never have.
I have another example about...
Or could have known. Tell me
about the civilian, the lack of civilian conversations, because like I said, there is quite a strong anti-Pakistan sentiment in India right now. Mm. Since the current government came into power, there has been a carte blanche, India becomes, territory that no Pakistani individual can enter. So we have the Cricket World Cup that's going on right now, where the Pakistani teams come in, and it has actually created quite a big of a political upheaval, uproar in India, in the sense that, oh, you've led these, because just before just a day or two after the Pakistani team landed in India, we had in Kashmir, there was a situation in which a couple of Indian soldiers were killed. And the current political party in power in India, the BJP, is quite, it's a hawkish stance on Pakistan. And they're saying that, which is weird, because that has also kind of shifted over the last years. Like, during a foreign trip in 2017, Modi just randomly changed the flight plan and reached Pakistan and hugged Nawaz Sharif.
Yeah, no, he actually, he was invited to his other, I don't know if it was daughter of Nawaz Sharif.
Yeah, it was his daughter's wedding.
So he was invited and he attended that.
And it was a surprise visit. And in India, the analysts could not say, this man he's built his entire political career on bashing anything that's related to Pakistan. And to be honest, it's actually more about the faith. It's about the Hindu identity as opposed to the Muslim identity. That is how he has built his career. Because his ancestral forebearers, his political ancestral forebearers were the people who wanted to create a Hindu supremacist state when we became independent. Yeah. They call the RSS, the Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh. That is, their literal organizational structure is based on the fascist party. You can't say that in India today. I would actually get beaten up for saying that in India today.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the reasons why we're filming this from the UK.
I'm actually pretty sure that if this becomes a thing, I would get a call from the Indian Eye Office. You are speaking things that should not be spoken.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let them call you.
Yeah.
So you would realize the depths of our deep states.
Yeah, that's exactly the point, because so this is the story. This conversation that a couple of years back, India was, I don't remember if I mentioned this in class. India was testing a new weapon systems, and an accidental firing happened, and it crossed the line of actual control, and it landed on Pakistani territory. Yes. And we have cross-border violations, firings.
So many times.
Almost on a daily basis.
Especially...
we have a state of ceasefire.
I don't know if Aditya would agree with me, but especially during when elections is happening.
No, I completely agree with you. It's easy to get political news. Oh, they fired on us, so we retaliatorily fired because the government allowed us to fire. Vote for us. They've literally... There has been conversations that there was before the elections that in 2019 in India, the national elections, there was a massive terrorist attack in Kashmir, in Pulwama, where 19 Indian soldiers were. I don't remember the number correctly, but it was
somewhere 40s.
40 Indian soldiers. So I was thinking about that China clash, that 40 Indian soldiers were killed, and the talk in India was we need to invade. We need to invade. And I'm saying, are you serious? We are going to launch a war based on this particular incident. And the language of the war was not in the sense that if the opposition party comes into power, this becomes a daily reality. You need to allow us, the incumbent party, to remain in power so that these kind of things don't become a norm. So there has been the deep state, which has been, like you said, there has been a slight uptake in how the deep state has started to present itself in India. Like the dominant, think tank that influences Indian foreign policy is headed by the son of the Raw Chief. Yeah. The head of, not the Raw Chief, sorry, the head of our intelligence, the national intelligence, a man called Ajit Doval, who was the ex-Raw Chief. Apparently he was involved in, in his book, he said that he was the one who exposed Pakistan's nuclear weapons program because he was an undercover agent at that point. He literally portrays himself as James Bond. Yeah.
Okay, we are kind of switching subjects now. Let us go back to our previous topic, which was a socio-economic situation, and kind of the reason why all three of us kind of right here, because we want to get a better education and try to go back to our home countries and maybe improve certain things. So what do you feel that are major socioeconomic challenges at the moment facing both of your countries? Maybe Mohamed can tell us something about this.
Well, there are so many socioeconomic challenges being faced by Pakistan, especially I would talk on behalf of Pakistanis, that we have so much young population. It's almost I'm not remembering the exact figures, but it's quite a lot. But if we compare, we are the 5th youngest population in the world, 5th or 6th maybe. Excuse my factual data because it's from the 2018 or 19 that we were considered this. Anyhow, with that, if we compare ourselves, our population with the one that was during time of independence, 1947, it was the West Pakistan, which is currently now Pakistan, and the East Pakistan has become Bangladesh. So it was somewhere in 30s. So what really, the population has exploded many folds. The resources are still the same. So it's like overpopulation has occurred. There is a lack of resources. So this means what? This means a problem. There is a high rate of unemployment. Then the quality of education. See, we have tribal region, which lacks quality education. They lack even education. They don't have that many schools, colleges. Not to say of any of universities in tribal region. There is none university there. They are coming to these cities to get education, and many very small in numbers. So lack of resources, and the education has remained quite poor quality. But recently there has been change. The focus has been given to education in changing them. They're trying to bring some changes, and they have brought some. But we will see the effects of it in the coming years. So these things, the education, this unemployment, this poverty, illiteracy, and beside that, there is always, I have seen a very, very big difference between my country and the country I'm residing in right now. This is about rule of law. We lack rule of law. The rule of law is missing. And that has made that has been a very big threat to Pakistan. Has remained quite a challenge to Pakistan. And I don't know when Pakistan will be able to have the rule of law for equal for all, and when the law Pakistan would be able that its laws knows everything, just like in Britain. And quite top on that is people don't pay taxes there in Pakistan. Only a handful of people do. There are very rich people, they don't pay taxes. Even here in UK, you would pay the road tax. A person driving a car would not only make insurance of his or her car, but he or her would also pay taxes of the road that person would be using. It's a big difference. So many taxes out there.
Yeah, it goes back to the question of who deserves a democracy, right? The responsibility of having democracy, I mean, we're talking about democracy is, and this is a problem that's there in India as well, you know. We have this very binary understanding of what democracy means is we go to on election day, it's a public holiday, we go to the voting booth, you take a selfie over there, you press the button, that's it, my responsibility is done. And then just outside the voting booth, we get into a car or whatever public transport and we complain, oh, the road's shitty, or there's no, where is a public health department picking up the garbage, or look at the stray dogs on the street. Stray dog attacks are a big threat, menace in India.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah, it's a subcontinental thing, stray dog attacks, you know, and then when we do try to have these conversations about responsibilities of a citizen, you know, your responsibility doesn't start and stop over there. Your responsibility to the privilege you get, because democracy is fundamentally the kind of democracies that we live in is they are new ideas. They have not existed in perpetuity. For most of humanity's history, we have been either ruled by monarchs or kings or dictators, and it's the idea that you also have a right to choose how you want to live has to be sacrosanct. You have to preserve it, you have to protect it, you have to work towards it, which I feel is a big problem in India, in terms of the problem in how we view democracy in India, is that the socio-economic problems are separate from this, because I mean, we can talk about this system of caste that exists in India, which is it's a social stratification based on your jobs, right? And it is so embedded within our culture that, like, for example, if you were from India and I told you my name today, you asked me what my second name was, Deepak, you as a person from India would automatically know what caste I was from. In fact,
what caste are you from?
Yeah. So there are multiple stratifications.
Yes, we know that since we have read about these castes as well in the books. Anyhow, it's quite interesting. I don't know in Indian case, but in Pakistan's case, we don't connect with democracy that much well because of just our political leaders are quite immature. They don't actually, their hypocrisy is quite evident, and it's quite much. They say one thing and they do otherwise.
So we have what I would describe in India as a form of authoritative democracy. It's something along the lines of what Viktor Orban is doing in Hungary. We use the systems of democracy to dismantle democracy itself.
Aditya, one moment, please. You actually mentioned Viktor Orban. Don't you consider him as a part of a popular politics, popular politician?
Populist. He is of the type.
And can you? I just want one small question. Can we consider Narendra Modi of India a populist leader or
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there was a question on Imran Khan as well in Pakistan that in the literature or in the news channels, some authors, some very good academians were considering him as one of the populist leader. But it turned out, anyhow, to some extent, we could agree on that he was doing he was following some tactics of popular politics. But I don't know. Still, the question is, we haven't come with the answer for him yet. That either he was a populist leader or not. Just in case of just like Donald Trump in United States of America, as he mentioned, Viktor Orban in where?
Hungary.
Hungary, and Marine Le Pen in France, and
the previous guy, I forgot the name, the guy in Brazil who lost out.
One of the first populist people in Europe was Silvio Berlusconi.
Yeah, exactly.
But he was in a kind of central populist.
Central populist.
He was not left or right. He was not the one who was actually challenging all the institutions, but he was criticizing and telling that he is a new leader that will change all, but he was in a way respecting the institutions.
Yeah, but the difference in somebody like Modi is that he's decidedly right-wing, and he's decidedly against the... He will never say this. So that is the
very, very interesting thing. I'm keep on pushing you towards socio-economic situation. We keep on backing. we keep on coming back to the politics. So it's kind of
in our
it's
case,
cultural thing. Even from Balkan people, even from people from
subcontinent.
Because Southeast Asia.
The unfortunate consequence of this thing is it goes back to our colonial history. Which we cannot de-link these two issues. Politics is so intrinsically linked to our socio-economic problems. It's because the idea that I told you about, democracy being ending at the ballot office, it prevails in every other aspect of how we choose to live our lives as well.
I totally agree with him.
There is no sense of collective responsibility.
Yeah. In addition to that, if your leaders, political leaders, tell you that there is a socio-economic challenges in your country and he's going to fix it, then there is another leader who is claiming the same, then there is another, then there is another. All the time you are hearing these socio-economic challenges and everybody is talking about that he's going to fix them. Political leaders, they have the answer to that and they are feeling it. So how can't you just actually take these two things, separate them? Politics and socio-economic issues, challenges. We have, in Pakistan case, we do have socio-economic challenges, so many of them, which includes poverty, illiteracy, unemployment, overpopulation, lack of resources, and
we do not talk about overpopulation in India, right?
Yeah, 1.4 billion, I think.
No,
we are the most populous country. We've crossed China as of December last year.
Yes, exactly.
No, sorry, March of
How
this
many
year.
states altogether?
30.
God.
India is now the...
and is it true that some of your states even don't understand each other?
Oh, no, 100%. Like, we have Gunja in our class. If I was from Kerala, the language that she speaks exclusively in Hindi. In the southern part of India, Hindi is seen as a language of the oppressor. So, the state where I am from, if you speak in Hindi over there, and I speak Hindi quite well because I didn't grow up in Kerala, so I speak Hindi quite well. It's seen as a sign of insult to your cultural identity. This is within the same country.
God.
Gunja is an Indian, I'm an Indian, but the language that she considers to be her mother tongue, I view as an insult to my culture. Can you imagine? And this goes back to the first point I was making about, the strength of our leaders post our independence. They managed to get such a diverse group of people, because even the politics of these people are extremely, like the state where I'm from, Kerala, people are extremely political. Like this conversation like we're having right now, every single person has it. But when you go to the state where I live, Maharashtra, people aren't that political. They have their regional politics based on their cultural identities, but it's not as prevalent as back in Kerala.
I would like to add to this, Aditya. It was because of the language. Language was the biggest barrier within East and West Pakistan. That led to ultimately...
Bangla and Urdu, right?
Yeah, this language thing. And believe me, I would agree with Aditya, the way the founding fathers of India managed to keep that as a whole unity together. It was in our case, we failed to do that. Even why did our first constitution didn't work? Because it has two national languages. Then again, and then there was official language English. There was Urdu national language, Bengali national language, and English is the official
language for communication within intergovernmental organizations.
Yes, and in our part, in the West Pakistan, I belong from the KP Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and it was previously known as NWFP Northwest
Province
Frontier Post, and then there is Sindh, then there is Balochistan, then there is Punjab. They all have different languages. No one has Urdu as their mother language. No one. We were told that Urdu is the national language. We accepted that. We actually tried to learn that. Even my mother language is Pashto. And we Pathans would actually a bit funnier in Urdu as well, because since our dialect is a bit different in Urdu. So this thing,
it really kind of impedes the unity in a sense, because
language is everything.
We've still managed to hold things together for the last 75 years.
Yeah.
At some point it might become a trouble for India if they couldn't. If somebody comes.
No, that's where this is actually the current debate that's going on in India about language. So our constitution does not have an official language. India doesn't have an official language.
As crazy as it sounds.
Yeah, it doesn't have an official language because you have to accommodate for the southern states which do not speak Hindi. There are, and the like I told you about the which we were talking about socio-economic conditions. The southern states are the richest states in India. Because we are a federal republic, each state has to pay taxes to the central government. The southern states contribute the most in terms of revenue per capita. And in terms of even bringing down the total fertility rates, the southern states have been so successful that they are now facing the similar crisis as what Japan is facing. Too many old people, not enough young people, which is the inverse. That is kind of, even the northern states have done reasonably well, but nowhere close to how well the southern states have done. In fact, the global requirement by the WHO for the TFR to maintain our population levels is 2.1. For my state of Kerala, it is below that number, but not that much. That's where my ancestry is from. But for the state of Tamil Nadu, which is the most vocal anti-Hindi group state in India, it is 1.6. They have done extremely well in bringing down the population, the total fertility rates, to the point that they are actually having a threat now of having too many old people, not enough young people, not enough people to work jobs and stuff like that. And that is building into a kind of political crisis that is going to come to India in the next couple of years, in terms of when we had our independence. There was this de-elimination clause that was put into our constitution about the number of representatives each state could have in parliament. It was directly linked to populations within the states. So the idea was to de-incentivize people from the majoritarian idea was more people, more representation in parliament. I mean, that's the idea. That's how it went. Now, because the southern states have done so extremely well in bringing down their fertility rates, the per capita representation that they will have in parliament is going to go down. Whereas this...
Okay. Do you feel this kind of a dichotomy at the moment where you on the global scale have the Prime Minister in the UK, you have the Chairman of the World Bank, but in your own home state, things are not so good in variety of sense. How you would comment this?
The thing is, unlike the so obvious problems that are there in, say, Israel. And
like Indians excel wherever they go. Like something like Lebanese. When you go to Paris, I don't know, 60-70% of doctors, they're all from Lebanon. And I cannot help myself to make this parallel all the time.
Why can't they do it back home?
For example, there is this Syria-Lebanon situation and Serbia-Montenegro situation and India-Pakistan situation of a big brother, a huge influencer. Can you tell me a little bit on your case? What is going on, in a sense that, we know even in NTU, in Nottingham, we have a lot of Indians, we have a lot of Pakistani, and they all excel in their subjects. and yet back home they don't have the opportunity to advance.
The thing is that the people who do get an opportunity to come abroad, they are already the cream of the crop. They are already, so because one, they probably have the educational or professional backgrounds to justify why these universities accept them, and two, they have the ability to gather the funds to pay for their education over here. And that is a fundamental problem that's there, that impedes India in the sense that the access to education, which again our ancestors...
Actually, Aditya, I would add here something that you might, I don't know why you're not talking about. I won't talk about the Indian case because I don't know much about it. But in Pakistan's case, the system isn't designed such.
I was just building up to that.
Oh, sure, taking a very long part, my friend.
Well, we are in a long form format. I don't want to leave things up to imagination.
There you go.
Yeah, you are going to be establishing. Actually, sorry for my, I can't take to. You say
we are academics over here. Shouldn't we be?
Mohamed is a concise type of guy.
Yeah, I can't wait much. Just get it all.
I feel that if I do that, there's a lot of things get lost in translation.
Exactly, I agree.
Yeah. Well, the path you take, the long path, you already had actually lost so many of hours attention. Actually, so. The system is marred with unaccountability, corruption, and by design it's flawed. Because you see, there are so many obsolete laws in Pakistan. There is obsolete educational standards.
You go back to the rule of law, and both the Indian, and I'm not sure of the Pakistani system, but our penal code is still what the British gave us.
Exactly. Obsolete.
We have the same laws that the British gave us 250 years ago.
Amazing.
Yeah, can you imagine? And we talk about decolonizing thought, but the very way in which we exercise justice is the way in which our colonizers thought us. Yeah. And see, and it builds into this. The institutions itself that are designed to be flawed. It's almost like the way they were designed was designed to fail.
The most accurate borders of the cadastral office in Kotor, Montenegro, are still the ones developed by Austrians during the Austro-Hungarian rule in Kotor.
Oh God!
Yeah,
but do you see that as a good thing?
I just
because I remember you saying that there was.
It's a fact.
It's a terrible boundary that was created.
It's a fact, and then you realize how much you need to develop on a general level. To be able to kind of follow up with the Western standards.
The problem with India was that we historically, I'm talking of post-independence, historically we were so emasculated with the multiple invasions and stuff like that. There was a crisis in identity or a crisis of confidence, I would call it. The one thing that I will kind of give begrudgingly credit to, because politically I'm totally against what Narendra Modi stands for. The one thing that I will give credit for is that Indians have started asserting themselves a little more confidently now. That is the one thing that I will say that has shifted in the last decade and a half of having his rule in India, is that we're going to have our general elections next year again, is that Indians have started asserting themselves a little more confidently, dare I say, which I don't agree with a little more aggressively, which was not the case before.
I would end here on a positive note, and if you don't mind, I would switch to UK experience, because we are kind of in the second third of our episode.
In Pakistan and India's this concept of family, this family structure is so amazing. Actually, since I'm coming from Pakistan, it's annoying for me at a time when I was personally experiencing that people don't leave you alone. They would have a say in every matter of yours.
Why do you need privacy?
There is no such concept of privacy.
Yeah. What is privacy? These are Western ideas. We don't need them over here. We don't have them over here. Yeah, I'm saying verbatim the things I've heard when I was growing up.
In West, CCTV have all your record, like where did you went, and you would be recorded in cameras. Back in Pakistan, your family would know. Where
your family is your CCTV.
Yeah, it's more than CCTV. They would be discussing, oh, okay, there it is, there it is.
It's not just the family. So you have mohallas.
Yeah, streets.
So the mohallas can defined as a small cul-de-sac of a community living together, multiple houses, in living for a long time. So everybody knows each other for a while. So it's not just your family monitoring you. You have your neighborhood auntie who's also monitoring. She'll come and tell your mom, yesterday night your son came back at 12 o'clock. Exactly. Oh, your son was talking to a girl that day. Who is she?
This was the surveillance type of surveillance.
Yeah. But it's not seen as
if all of us are cops, then
exactly.
We build up a more secure
the Westerns.
Francis Bacon's the panopticon. Everybody becomes a surveillance camera themselves.
Exactly.
But it's not seen as a negative back in our subcontinent. It is seen as a way of how we. This is it's seen as a system of care. We are doing this because we care about you.
Exactly.
If we don't care about you, who's going to care about you?
Yes, people from West might.
Orwellian utopia, I guess.
No, that's actually a good way of describing it.
So much offended by them. The very first question, if a relative sees you after a month or two even, what you were doing for the past month or two? You have to explain it to them.
Exactly.
Like, seriously?
Mohammed likes to watch a lot of movies and series from Netflix. He's like an expert. If you open up a subject with him, he would end up talking for 2 days. So this is a common theme for him because he was watching for straight 7 days some TV series, and all of a sudden he needs to explain to his cousin where the heck he went.
Yes, funny thing is you have to explain. Okay, so what are you doing academically? Okay, so what do you do in your free time? Okay, so are you going to there? I haven't seen you in that wedding or that funeral or that system.
It's the same. It's the exact same.
I have watched, yes, I would agree with you that I have spent so much life watching seasons and movies. 1/3 of my life at least would have been spent on these things. So I have seen so many cultures, and I would always be intrigued by them that they don't care who everyone is doing what. But coming to UK, I have realized that we weren't left alone. Because of that, we didn't have the concept of depression. We weren't left alone.
You didn't have the time to be depressed.
Yes, exactly. We were engaged in so much. We were annoyed so much. We were like we wouldn't have been given privacy to think about that there is such a thing about negative thinking and getting lost and feeling all alone, and especially even in the winters, the seasons is playing a quite role, and in winters people often feel. I have noticed. I even have.
Seasonal depression.
For the first time in my life, I was like feeling alone, even though I would love myself to be alone. But in Pakistan, I would be in my room for days. Like I would be getting out of room for eating and prayers and stuff, but I would then come right back to my room, and I wouldn't feel alone because everyone was keeping the record that okay, he's in his room, and
until you explain yourself with all the relatives and friends,
everyone knows where I am at any given
at all times. Yeah.
Yes, any guest would come in the room. Okay, Talha is there, because he never leaves home.
We didn't have locks on our doors, on our bedroom doors. Our parents did not have any conception we need to knock before we enter our rooms.
Okay, yeah.
They just walk in. I paid for this room. This is my room that I'm choosing to let you live in. Why should I knock on a door that I own to enter a room that I built with my money?
It's a very nice way to make this transition. Now you come to the UK, you have your own door, you have your own room.
No, this stopped when I was like 15.
Of course.
Actually, not in our case. Nobody actually knocks. There is no concept of knock, no concept of privacy. They would enter right away. Here, things are different.
I just remembered one thing when we were crossing this main square, and now we have the festive season, Christmas, and everyone there. You feel like home, but you also feel that you cannot push people and tell them to get out of your way.
That's what happened. I mean, I told you about that, right? Like, I was going to meet a friend of mine, and she was on the other side of the city square, and I come from the other side. So I have to pass through the square. And so the way I come in, it's from a higher slope, and then the city square is at a lower level. So I can see the crowd because I'm coming from a slope. So I'm at a higher level. It's not much. It's about 50, 100 meters away, but the slope is downwards. So I could see the crowd. I'm saying, this reminds me of Mumbai. This is Mumbai. And then I thought, okay, this is familiar, feels like home. I entered the crowd and I realized, oh, this is not Mumbai, because by now I would have heard at least 20 galis.
Yeah.
Galis are bad words, foul language. I can't use the language, but because I think your ears will start bleeding if I use the language that we hear back in India. And I would have also engaged in a similar conversation back home. Hey, get the hell out of my way. Push, prod, move. And I'm here, everybody's, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. The excessive apologies is nauseating over here. I'm sick of it. I don't want to be apologized for just moving out of the way when somebody's coming my way and they are apologizing to me. What the hell did I do to be apologized for?
It's a cultural
yeah, I get that. I mean, we don't have that. In India, people don't... When you cross the roads over here, we need to... Do you look at both ways when you cross the road?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Because in India, there is no concept of a direction that is defined as the route. The cars only come from that way. All my Indian friends, we constantly joke about the fact that you look both ways, right, while crossing?
Yes.
Because I can't help myself. Like every time I think, this time I'm not going to look the other way. In the back of my mind, there is something coming from the other side as well. I need to at least look. That's the one thing. Like it's still not come into my mind that I can trust that there's no vehicle going to come from this direction.
Some smart people over here actually wrote it on the street, so you can literally see on the street.
We have the same. We have that in India. Everything is written. This is one way. Cars only move this way. Nobody gives a shit.
Okay, fellas, for the last question of the night, we are quite for some time here. Messages to young people, especially to young people back home.
Should I take first?
Please.
Okay, so I would start with that anyone who is listening to this podcast, please do remember that you are the product of what you consume, what you watch, what type of conversations you engage yourself in, what do you eat even. You are all the product of whatever you consume. Either it is talking, either it is reading, either it is... eating. Even eating is what makes you out. So try to engage yourself in something productive, in something positive. Don't give rooms to negativity, especially that is spreading in this fast age of social media age, and where the wrong content for wrongful reasons are consumed too much. It's way too much. It's actually screwing your whole high IQ. Your whole IQ is being actually influenced by that, especially these short videos. We have actually, I don't know if short videos would be made of this. I don't want to sound...
It will.
Then I might...
That's why he's been silent when we've been saying
okay,
this.
now his facial expressions were like, oh, don't go there.
We will
don't
make
go there.
Smart short videos.
Yeah. These short videos has actually made people intolerant of so much thing that people can't nowadays watch documentaries that are lengthier podcasts in a single go. People of our times and before that, people used to watch things at a very same or single pace. So these things are affecting us, and entertainment is good. Everyone needs to have a laugh. Everyone needs to get access to good jokes, good comedy, but don't get too much involved in it. Don't get too much invested in it. In a sense that entertainment becomes, it actually crosses something. Because I have seen, since even I'm a part of youth, so I have seen that what sorts of other entertainment...
You said you were 1,000 years old.
Oh, when did that happen?
This is coming way too many times so far, the age story. Okay,
So there is so much I can talk about, but I'm quite sure that no one would listen. That's the beauty of it. So I would say, do as you be pleased.
Thank you, Mohammed. Aditya, what would be...
I would say that be courageous. You know what you are about. You do not have to feel that your identity has to be described in the ways that your parents described it or your peers describe it. Forge your own path. Your path, you can forge it by building upon what Mohammed said about what you consume, how you live, how you choose to live, who you choose to live, have in your own lives. You can do it. You can have that choice for yourself. Unfortunately, in our culture, we have been taught that ideas and the choices of how you live your life have to be dictated by your elders. That's not true. You can take on their wisdom and build upon it, but you do not have to define your lives based on their wisdom.
Listen to your pops up to a point.
Up to a point, yes. Because your lived experience is going to be very different from his lived experience. He's giving you advice for the world that he grew up in.
Exactly.
He's probably does not have conception, and that's not his fault. That's when he grew up. He's giving you advice for how to live in his world. Exactly. You're not living in his world now. You're living in your world. Your world is populated by people who think like you, who feel like you. You can take upon what they taught you and build upon it. You don't have to forge your own identity. You forge an identity that is uniquely yours. That's all I have to say.
Fellas, thank you so much for this wonderful episode.
Thank you, Yank.
Thank you so much. I know that the midterm is coming and we have a lot of obligations, and there are a lot of case studies and literature reviews to catch up with.
That thing is happening.
So thank you so much for dedicating your time for this podcast and to this episode. And I hope I'm going to see you at some other point, maybe when you start with your PhDs or something, so we can discuss even these topics.
Absolutely.